Welcome to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece Calbanero, and I'll be sharing stories of miracles, God moments, and unpacking the truth behind what joy truly means. My friend, when God gives you a direct call on your life, be sure to answer it. Here's to answering my call together. Hello. Welcome back to That's Joy, the podcast. If this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today and to share this space with you. If you are new around here, we love kicking off the top of every episode with a little joyful noise. Joyful noise is just our version of good news. What are the good things that are happening out there? Let's hear more about that. You can send in your joyful noise, by the way, to me. At any time, literally shoot me a DM, text me to the number in the show notes. I want to hear more of these stories. I want to hear how God's moving in and through your life. And the coolest thing is that I feel like He affords us the opportunity to see things, experience things, taste, smell, all that good senses. We get to see those things. We get to feel and experience them. And it is such a blessing when, someone else is able to hear about them, because I think it builds up faith, encourages our friends, and we get to shed light on Jesus and how He's moving through us. But today I'm going to read a little review moment that happens to just be a dose of my joyful noise. When you guys write these in, I'm not kidding you, it goes so much further than what you think. Like, I remember when I heard about reviews for the first time, I was like, oh, you get a bazillion of those. Like, who am I to write one more in? But yours matters, and it matters so much. And it all adds up and accumulates to help other podcasters, other creators out there get closer to their goals and closer to the things that they feel God is calling them to do too. So this one is from sweet friend Carrie. She said, such a blessing, 5 stars. I've just started listening to this podcast about a month ago, and it has been such a blessing on my life. Cece has such amazing things to say and is really letting God use her for His kingdom. Thank you for this podcast. Carrie, thank you for choosing to click play. In fact, friend, thank you for choosing to click play on this episode. I'm so grateful, and I'm really, really excited to talk about today's episode. Today's episode is all about singleness. You clicked on this because maybe that happens to be you, or you know what? Maybe you're picking up a dose or two of golden nuggets, which is just my version of like wisdom pieces. Golden nuggets just sounds way more fun. It's my version of golden nuggets. So, if maybe you're in a relationship, but you clicked on this episode because you're curious to know how you can best show up for your friends, gold star for you for going the extra mile. Come on. But anyhow, my hope is that through answering some of our community questions that we had pulled in, you'll feel a bit more equipped on how you can navigate this season that you may find yourself in, or better yet, how you can pour into a friend who may be navigating this very season. So I thought it would just be best to hear from you guys. I haven't done this in a while, but our text community is popping off. If you are not in there yet, go text me immediately after this episode, join the text community. And I just want to hear from you. I want to know who you are. I want to know your name. I want to know where you're from, how old you are. Like, come on, let's be friends. But anyhow, I was like, you know what? Better than me just going in and riffing on this. This feels like one of those episodes where I'm like, hey, can we go to coffee? Let's go to coffee together, and I hope that I get to just leave you encouraged. I hope that after our coffee date, you would view your singleness and this season in your life in a totally different light. Because truly, that's what I get to do with some of my friends and what we have done for each other prior to me meeting Jonathan. So all this to say, everything that I'm going to share on this episode is all about how I walk through singleness. And if you're also new around here, I'm 27 years old. I'll be turning 28 years old in April, which feels wild. I'm like, I do not feel 28 years old in April. I don't think I will by April either. But anyhow, Valentine's Day, it's around the corner. Even the month of February alone, we see those red boxes and pink and red literally throwing up everywhere in every store. And if we're being honest, it can make some of us cringe, right? And so I'm speaking from the light of I see you, I hear you, because I've been there for a long season prior to meeting Jonathan, who is my boyfriend and my love. I navigated this season for a very long time in my life. I never embarked on a real relationship before, a real, quote unquote, serious relationship before. So I'm speaking from years of experience underneath my belt, y'all. And I just hope that through answering and going through these questions from my community with you, it gives you a little bit more insight. So let me just stop and let's just go. The first question is, hey, how do you navigate dealing with the pressure of being in a relationship when you're happy being single? And that was sent in from Aubrey. Aubrey girl, great question. I love this because I love just like punching this one in the face, you know? Whatever pressures we feel, those are all outside of what God is calling us to and who we are. That is why it's so important for our identity, you guys, to just be so deeply rooted in God and deeply rooted in believing in Jesus. Because when that is firm, everything else falls to the wayside. Because what ends up happening when you're firm in your identity, like right now, Aubrey, if you were happy being single, but you feel the pressure of everyone else saying you have to be in a relationship right now, that falls to the wayside. It could be your family that's telling you these opinions. Guess what? That falls to the wayside. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean that you're not greeting them with kindness and the fruit of the Spirit. But what you are doing is saying that I am so in tune with God's voice right now in my life, and I know what He's calling me to, and it's not a relationship right now. One, I'm so proud of you for acknowledging that because a lot of people even struggle to get there. But then two, it's like, absolutely. You are on unshakable ground. So any other opinion that's coming at you, sorry, but there's no room here. It's not going to land here. It won't stick here. And that's how you deal with navigating that pressure. You don't have to hold it. It actually isn't your responsibility to. The next question says from our friend Julia. It says, how do you set boundaries with people you know are interested in you? I have a boyfriend and know someone else likes me. Obviously, I don't want to play into it. So how do I set boundaries? Completely ignore him? I heard about his interest through someone else. Sweet Julia. I love this, you guys. I really feel like we're at coffee right now and we're just like, what's the tea, sister? What are you going through over there? And here I am sitting alone in a podcast studio, talking to myself. But here we are, you guys. I love this question so much. Okay. Whew. Sweet Julia. I feel like this is one of those things that in high school, I saw your age here, so I'm assuming that you are in high school. It just is one of those things that are so what feels big right now, but it's actually really small in context. And I don't say that to negate how difficult it might be to be navigating right now, but I think it goes back to the first question. When you are rooted, sweet Julia, when you are rooted, those things fall to the wayside too. So with this man's, first and foremost, we don't know for sure, right? And so we heard this interest through someone else. I can't tell you how many times that I have heard these types of things too, even to date. And I'm in my later 20s, right? But what we give attention to grows. And so we have to be mindful of the things that we are giving attention to. We can't afford to give attention to this man who we might think he likes us. We might not, even though we're in a relationship right now. I'm thinking about sweet Jonathan, my boyfriend. Like I don't want to be focusing on any other man's except him. I want to be thinking about him and not these other people. And so I just would ask for God to just realign and just to pray into that and say, you know what, God, can you help me focus on my boyfriend who I have right in front of me and help me to love him well, help me to know how to show up for him well. And by doing those very things and moving in that, like taking action on that, you're naturally not going to have time in your mind to think about this other thing. So as far as boundary goes, I think that you can always love people well and you can be a good friend. It doesn't mean that you're talking every single day to do that. And there's also power in making sure that, your clear is clear, right? If you feel your discernment is off and you are finding yourself hanging out with him, your discernment's probably off. Listen to that. Listen to the Holy Spirit, and he will make those whispers very clear, what you should and shouldn't be doing when it comes to navigating a friendship with that man's. That's not your boyfriend. Okay, next question. Love this. This is getting good. What's your opinion on dating apps? Catherine is asking me. All right, Catherine, and probably many others who are curious to know. If you have not yet listened to the episode with Jonathan Lutz on my podcast, go do that. I share the story of how we meet on there. We didn't meet through a dating app, but here's what I'll say. I am not against dating apps. I have a handful of friends who've actually gotten married to their spouses from dating apps. My older brother met his fiance on a dating app. I know very godly people who were on dating apps and they are now in a godly marriage. And I know that it works for some people, but I personally, before I met Jonathan, was not in a place where I was actively utilizing dating apps. I think that I had this constant, which happens to be probably several girls, where you'd go through waves of just like, all right, I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be on it for a couple months. And then you feel this slight conviction of like, wait, no, I'm not supposed to be on it. So then you delete it and you don't even have the app on your phone. And then 3 months later, you have a lonely night and you're like, wait, let me download it again. I'm going to download it again. Okay, I'm not talking to just me, right? I've been there before. I have done that before, and it hasn't been good for me. What I will say is my friends who find themselves in the godly marriages that met through dating apps were prayerful through the steps. And I have friends currently who are some of my best friends who are on dating apps that are praying about who they're saying yes to go on a date on. And that's the difference. I think that when you are asking yourself if you should or shouldn't be on a dating app, one, don't ask me, ask the Holy Spirit first. Second, listen to those whispers. Listen to the convictions that you feel in your heart, because often they'll lead you to more of where God wants that will of your life to be. So I say, if you feel peace about being on the dating app, then my goodness, be on the dating app. If you don't feel peace about it, maybe it's because in that moment you're thinking about it, it's not rooted from a godly perspective. It might be rooted more from what the enemy is planting in your mind, which is loneliness, which is fear of not being able to find someone, which is all of these different negative things. So that's what you have to be mindful of as you're navigating dating apps, is saying like, where is my heart and head in this moment? If it is in a positive bucket, if I feel peace about it, let me keep stepping. If it's the opposite of that, let me halt, let me wait, and let me pray about it. Okay. That's my answer there. All right. The next question we got is from Ms. and it says, what has been your favorite part of singleness? Ooh, there's so many favorite parts about singleness. I want to share this. I want to share this story. I literally last year, at the top of the year, I shared this before, but I was mindful about how much I wanted to focus on a relationship this year. Mind you, being more mindful of relationships and the potential of being in a relationship with someone, right? I made that a focus. And I think what ended up happening was there was fear that happened before making that decision. Like, oh gosh, am I really going to commit to this year? What if I actually find him? By the way, I found him, but, I thought about this at the top of the year and it became something that I made room for in my life. And I say that because I'm like, so often we want to get out of singleness, but really we're not making room for it in our lives. And so I want to share that piece because there's something so special about singleness. I knew that I wanted to stay busy working on being the best partner that I can possibly be so that I can show up and be the best partner that I can possibly be, right? All right. The next question is, how can we change / reframe our mindset around being single or in our single season? This is from my good friend Lo. And you guys, Lo is so good at this season. She just texted because I had asked her to send in a question too. But she is a good friend that I met through college. And she actually started this thing that she shares on her social media. And it's called Solo Moments. And so her name's Lo. And she's solo. She's not in a relationship. But she does these different life experiences by herself. One of those is that she goes to a concert by herself. I'm still building up the guts to do something by myself. I don't know if you guys have even ever eaten at a restaurant by yourself. That recently happened for me in the last 2 years. I just would encourage you to have more solo moments, because I think so much growth ends up happening when we're stretching ourselves so far out of our comfort zones to say that I don't need anyone else. In fact, I don't even need a friend here right now. I'm so good on my own that I can do and embark on this moment by myself. And it's not this righteous feeling of like, prideful of, I don't need nobody. That's not what we're saying here. What I'm saying is that you are fixing your identity in a posture that says, I have everything I need right now and everything else is overflow, right? So when it comes to shifting our mindset about this, I want to share a little bit about what a friend shared with me, a different friend, not Lo, that I will never forget. And it was before I had met Jonathan, my boyfriend too. And we were talking about just different things that we were waiting for in our lives, just waiting for different doors of career to open up, waiting for our future spouses. And the unique thing is now we're both in a relationship and we found our mans in the same month, which, come on, Lord. But she had asked this profound question and she said, Cece, if you knew that 6 months from now, your husband would be there, what would you do? And I was like, whoa, that's a really good question. I wouldn't be ready. Like, if I kept doing exactly what I was doing right now, I don't think that I would be ready, because I wouldn't be ready emotionally. I wouldn't be ready in like all of it, right? Physically, mentally, just all of it. Because I'm here sitting saying that I want to be in a relationship, yet I'm not laying down the bricks and the foundation to be the partner that I pray that he would be. And how unfair is that, right? I think as women too, we need to get better at this. We have this like wish list almost. It isn't like a prayer list. It's more like a wish list of things that we expect out of a man and want and desire out of a man. But yet, what are we doing to make sure that we're matching his? You know what I mean? Like our list gets so crazy. Like, I hope that he's buff. I hope that he can lift 350 pounds. I don't know. You're probably not writing that, but you get the sentiment, right? Some of the things that we hope and wish for are just so obscure that we're like, okay, is that from you, God, or is that just my flesh that's wanting those things? We have to ask ourselves that question sometimes, y'all. But I say that because I'm like, man, I just want to be intentional with who I'm showing up as, because in the same way that I am praying about these things that I desire in a future husband, I hope and pray that my future husband is doing the same thing. I hope that he has his not wish list, but his prayer list of things that he has listened to God for and he is praying over about me. And then I hope that I'm listening so much to God that I am so in line with his prayer list so that when we do meet, when God opens both of those doors, it just makes sense. And so that's what I want to encourage you with, friend. And I want to ask you that same question. If you were to meet your future husband, your future wife, 6 months from today, let's count it: January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Hold on. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. It's July 27th and you know your husband. From now until July 27th, what are you going to do with that in between? For me, you know how I spent it? This fired me up because I knew that I wanted to be with someone who volunteered. I wanted to be with someone who read books. I wanted to be with someone who spent time praying and in the prayer closet. And so what did I do? I did those very things during that season. I put my head down and I was volunteering every week, whether that be at People Loving Nashville, which is a nonprofit catering to the unhoused community here in Nashville, or volunteering more at my church, being consistent in that, spending my evenings reading with a nice nightly routine, and then spending my mornings with a strong morning routine, hoping and praying that he's doing the same thing, right? And so that's what I would say. Now ask yourself, what would you want in your future partner? And are you doing those very things to match what you are so desiring out of him or out of her? All right, let's head to the next question. The next question is, my question for singleness are, how long should I have to wait for God to give me my future husband? What expectations should I expect from the Lord? And why is being single complicated? Miranda, that is a hefty one. There's a lot here. Let's tackle the first part. So how long should I have to wait for God to give me my future husband? Sis, I wish I knew. I really did. I wish that I could turn to all of my best friends and all of my That's Joy community and say, you're meeting him at 25, you're meeting him at 29, you're meeting him at 16, and you're meeting him at 45. And just know, because God just told me that or something. Unfortunately, we don't know, right? There's no answer here. And I think that the more that we try to seek out this answer, the more that we just dig a hole deeper in everything but peace. Everything that does not bring peace is what we end up digging ourselves into. So I would lose and let go of this, how long should I have to wait? Because it isn't about knowing that time. It's about committing our hearts and being in a posture and a surrender of saying, no matter the time, I am committing God to doing X, Y, and Z, whatever that may be for you. Now you're asking, what expectations should I expect from the Lord? I would be expectant. I would be prayerful about every aspect of who your husband is, not in the wish list sense. You know the difference of what I mean. If you feel in your conviction it feels more wish list, it's probably more wish list, okay? But what I'm saying is, like, your prayer list, are you praying over the qualities and the character of that future husband? And I would be expectant. I think God calls us to have faith and pray with a faith and a belief that it will happen. Now, why it's so complicated, which is, I think, how I see it, of why it could be complicated, is because God doesn't promise that we will be married. God doesn't promise that each of us will be on this side of heaven ending with a marriage. It isn't necessarily guaranteed. So I think the complications with singleness draw, like, okay, is this my forever season or is it just a season? And to that, I wish that I had a clear answer for you here, but I want to, instead of an answer, just encourage you and say, whatever viewpoint we are choosing to look at something, that is only going to grow. So every morning when you choose to look at how the day is going to go, are you already deciding when your feet swing off the bed and hit the floor that you are going to have a good day? It doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen to you today, but it does mean that you're posturing your heart and your mind in alignment with God and saying that, you know what, I'm believing and I'm praying for this thing. And then comes the surrender part, right? The surrender is, okay, at the top of the day, you're committing and you're saying, today's going to be a good day, a good day. And God, have your way. And that's where our hands, instead of them crossing over our chest, thinking that we can control them, they fall to our sides. And they say, no matter what happens today, I'm just going to try my best to find the good, to be the good and to see the good. Bad things might happen, but I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. In the same way that you can practice that very good day, translate that to how you are seeing and praying and expecting your future husband. All right, we're 2 more questions here. How do you move smoothly from a friendship to a godly relationship? Such a good question, Bailey. This one, I think, is one of those things that naturally happen as you both pray. And I think that's the importance of making sure that you are so mindful in who you are deciding to date, because friends, we have to be equally yoked. We just have to. And so if we know from the gate that that's not it, and we're not equally yoked, we must have the heart and the guts to let go. I know that's hard, but somebody needs to hear that today. If you are not equally yoked now, you won't be equally yoked later. Something that I really admire about my current relationship with Jonathan is just how much we're both running after the calling that God has on our lives. And it just so happens that it's parallel, right? Like we're on the same highway, but we aren't necessarily on the same lane. We're just side by side. He's running after his calling. I'm running after mine. And it feels like we're equally yoked. And so we just encourage you to, one, recognize that. And two, if the friendship is there, how do you go from a friendship to a godly relationship? That is up to the mans. The mans must pursue. And so I think that you just get to pray for him. You get to pray with an unmatched faith. Pray crazy prayers. I'm telling you, there are so many things that I will share one day, but not yet, on how I was praying for certain things to happen with me and Jonathan, and how they exactly happened in that way. Journal like crazy, pray like crazy, and just watch it go, if it's God's will, from a friendship to that godly relationship, if both are listening and hearing from God that it's supposed to be that way. All right, in other words, Naomi's asking this question: how do we not allow our significant other to become a distraction and keep that fire for God we had when we were single, all while investing into a new relationship as well? Naomi, this is such a good question, and this is a question that I still find myself in the seat in, and I think it's something that we will always be postured to kind of grow into. I think that there's something I will never forget. I don't know if you guys have watched the movie Fireproof before. It's a really good Christian film, but it talks about this concept of a triangle, and how at the top of the triangle is God, and at the bottom two corners of the triangle is you and your partner. You and your partner, when you're furthest from the top, are furthest from each other, right? But as you draw closer to God, as one point goes closer to the top, closer to God, as the other point draws closer to God, closer to the top, what ends up happening to the both of them? They become closer. They become closer naturally when they put God first and run after God. And so I would say to this question, how do we not allow our significant other to become a distraction? That easily can happen because our flesh is so real, and what our fleshly desires try to take over and tell us is that they have to be our everything, but that is just simply not true. Our relationship cannot be our everything. It cannot. God must be our everything, and God must come first. I'm gonna never forget, before I even met Jonathan too, I had a crazy God moment where this man in the Franklin factory, if you've ever been to Franklin, Tennessee, it's really big. It's kind of like a indoor mall-ish kind of vibe, boutique mall, I guess. But this random old man, it almost was like angelic, I'm not kidding. He came up to me and my friend, and he pulled out his violin. So random. And he's like, "Can I play you guys a song?" We're like, "Absolutely." So we get front row seats to this older man, all gray hair, pulling out his violin and playing for us. And he starts whipping up a song, and it's beautiful. It's a Christmas song. And then he asked if both of us are single. And my friend was married. She was like, "No, I'm married." And then he pointed to me and he was like, "Are you dating?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." And then he said, "Find a man who loves God more than he loves you, and hold on to them." I'm going to say that again because someone missed it. Find a man who loves God more than he loves you, and hold on to them. That is key. It's key. It's key. It's key. We can have any type of idol in our lives, right? Or we can idolize our social media, our phones, our relationship, our careers. We can idol so many different things, but we know that when we're doing that, God isn't first. So we must repent against any form of that happening in our lives, and then say, "God, I want you at the top. I want you to be first always, and then commit to that. And that, my friend, is just a daily muscle exercise. I think you get stronger at it as you practice, and you get better at it, and it becomes clear with time. So that is what I would encourage you, sweet Naomi. There are a couple scriptures that I do want to share too. One is talking about the waiting, right? And not knowing how long or when God's going to move, and thinking that we are single for so long, quote unquote, when majority of us are still in our 20s and younger. So it's like, all right, we have not been waiting forever. There are women who are so bold and radical in their faith, and I've met them who are in their 60s saying, I haven't met my husband yet. And so let that build your faith. But this scripture is 2 Peter verse 3:8. It says, but do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. And what's that saying, right? God is never early. He's never late. He is never in a hurry, but he's right on time. Think about all the other things that have happened in your life that happened for you. It was right on time. It couldn't have been early. You weren't ready. It wasn't going to be later because it wasn't going to be later. So just know and trust that, and spend that waiting room, that waiting in between well, because there's a refining that happens backstage, right? Backstage at all of the different moments that haven't happened yet that God is working on. He's working on you. He's working on refining you. He's working on making you the better spouse and better partner. And I look back at my life, and there were 27 years that I had to be refined. I had to heal. There was things that God had to heal in my heart behind the curtain that I just couldn't see, right? And the second thing is, and this isn't for everyone, but it is for a few, and I really feel called to share it. It's 1 John verse 4:18. It says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. Friends, there is no fear in love. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but it's okay to open up your heart. It's okay to try again. It's okay to say, hey, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to open up my heart again, and I'm ready to love and to be loved. Friends, I hope you feel encouraged from this episode. This was so much fun. I want to do more of these different community-like episodes with you guys, because I think it's a just really cool way to bring you into it. And if I could get all of you in the same room, which prophesy, maybe one day we will, this feels like the closest version that we can do right now. So if there's a certain part of this episode, by the way, that you're like, Cece, just more of that, let's hear more of that, text me what that is to the number 615-813-4813. If you're not following me on social yet, you can follow me at CCALBONERO, and you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Also follow That's Joy account for all things joy. That's Joy the podcast on Insta. If you have not yet rated, subscribed, or left a review, please, please, please take the time to go do that. It means the world, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you who choose to do that. Friends, I'll never leave an episode without saying, if you have even the smallest desire to meet the creator of the universe, or if you've already been saved but you aren't really free, I want to invite you to sit at the table of plenty with me and so many others. I'm telling you, there's an abundance here. There is an overflow here, and there is so much joy to be had here. God is for you. He is for you. All you have to do is invite him into your heart right now. Waiting for you. He wants to meet with you, and I am so proud of you. If you just made this decision, I would love to know you. Shoot me a text to the number in the show notes so I could pray for you. I love you. God loves you. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much for being here, and happy Valentine's Day.